Hello, I'm Kristian, and welcome to the Memoir Leadership Podcast, a show where we talk about effective collaboration, influence, and leadership in an increasingly complex world. My interview partner is Dr. Dirk Schlimm. Dirk is an international leadership expert and the author of Influencing Powerful People. The purpose of this podcast is to share ideas and stimulate discussion, and it does not constitute professional advice of any kind. If such advice is needed, the services of a competent professional should be sought. The speakers, host, and Memoir International Incorporated are not to be held responsible for any use, misuse, or reuse of the content. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to the Memoir Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Kristian, and I'm so glad that you're joining us today. In today's podcast, we're exploring startup leadership at the intersection of technology and entrepreneurship. Our special guests are two young entrepreneurs, Kristian Tazbazian, co-founder of Gastronomous Technologies, and Karl Aumann, the company's lead product manager. Kristian and Karl are leading a company that's pioneering automation in the restaurant industry, and they've already captured the attention of major players in the fast food world. Gastronomous, based near Toronto, is pushing the boundaries of what's possible in commercial kitchens through AI and robotics. Today, Kristian and Karl share insights into their entrepreneurial journey, from the inspiration behind Gastronomous to their aspirations for the company. We'll dive into the challenges of scaling up, staying independent, and the leadership qualities that drive a technology startup towards success. This is a great interview. We're going to do it in two parts, so stick around. But right now, we're going to dive in. I hope you enjoy.
Good. Thank you for having us, Kristian and Dirk. We're looking forward to the podcast today.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for joining us. I'm going to dive right in with a question for you, Kristian, first. So, Kristian, I talked with Dirk a bit beforehand, heard a bit about your background, and me that you left engineering school and you co-founded Gastronomous, inspired by your grandfather. So I'll just ask you a couple of questions. Feel free to answer however you like. But first, I think our listeners would want to hear a little bit more about that decision that you made and how your grandfather played into that entrepreneurial journey. And then, of course, beyond that, we'd love to hear what you could tell us about your vision for Gastronomous and what's the business you're in, how you will add value to your customers, and of course, how you will transform an industry. So anything you could share on that would be great.
Sure, most definitely. So, yeah, my grandfather, so my mother's side of the family came to Canada in the late 70s, early 80s, and my grandfather ended up getting into the automotive space. He started off in kind of tube distribution, and long story short, in the 90s he got into automotive manufacturing. So as a young boy, I would often spend my summers and whatever free time I had in that automotive facility, surrounded by robots, surrounded by automation, surrounded by manufacturing. And I think it was a passion right from the beginning. It's something I very much enjoyed, and it sparks that entrepreneurial spirit in me, which I think is the big reason why I ended up kind of joining Gastronomous and co-founding Gastronomous. Fast forward a little bit for my personal story. I was studying computer science at the University of Waterloo. I finished my first year there, and it got cut a few weeks short because of COVID. So March 2020 came back home when COVID started, and I'm not someone to, let's say, sit around. So my two co-founders had the idea for a while at that time of introducing robotics and introducing new technology to the back of house operations for, let's say, fast food restaurants. So when I came back from school that summer, I told them, I said, look, I have 6 months free. It's a good opportunity for us to give this idea a shot and get the ball rolling and see where it happens, see where it comes, see what we can do. So by the end of summer 2020, when it was, let's say, time for me to return to school, we had put together a very, very basic concept of what automation in the fast food restaurant might look like. And I think looking back, we did it in a very, smart way. We put together something very quickly and for a low cost, where it was never our final product in mind, but it was something great where we could begin bringing in prospective customers, suppliers, distributors, you name it, to get the ball rolling and to begin, networking and learning about the space and gaining traction. So by the end of that summer, we were meeting with large groups and we could see the vision. So I decided to join, let's say, the company full time. So did my fellow co-founders, and that's a little bit how Gastronomous was born. I think long term, our vision is to modernize and bring new technologies to the back of house, so to the cooking facilities of these fast food restaurants, to help improve their efficiencies and to help improve the overall dynamic of their restaurants. If you look at fast food kitchens, they haven't changed much since, let's say, the modern fast food concept was adopted some 70 or 80 years ago. I don't think it's because they don't want to. I think it's because the space in large, the commercial kitchen equipment space is a very, very large, very old industry where it's going to take a newcomer to really shake things up and introduce new processes. I like to use the analogy often of, the electric versus petrol cars, and that if newcomers like Tesla or BYD or whoever didn't come about, none of the existing and large automotive companies would even be talking about electric cars today.
That's a great analogy, and thank you for sharing so much of your story. It's truly an entrepreneur story, but I think something we appreciate on this podcast. We have a global audience, but it's a Canadian story as well. So great.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that history, and of course we love the family connection. That's something I know a lot of our listeners can probably relate to and be inspired by. So Karl, we don't want to leave you out either. And Kristian just shared a bit about his background. So Karl, why don't I ask you to jump in here? You joined Gastronomous after finishing your business degree at McGill University. So maybe we'll just ask you, what attracted you to the startup, and how are you putting to use what you learned at business school with go-to-market strategies, operations, product management, any other terms you could think of there? Karl, just share a bit about your journey too, please.
Yeah, so I've known Kristian for what, 10 years now, Kristian? Maybe a bit more?
Close to 10 years, maybe more.
Yeah, so it's been a long time. Anyways.
Yeah.
I still remember in high school, Kristian opened up a sneaker shop. I was his first hire there as well, so it's been a long road. Anyways, when it comes to Gastronomous, I've been working with Kristian since 2022, I think it is, January of 2022.
Yeah.
So just a bit over 2 years now. Even though I was still in university, look, when you're working, you learn a lot more. So some of my classes weren't as useful as they needed to be, and so I reallocated that time to helping out Gastronomous in any way. But regardless, I graduated last May, so May of 23. And 2 days after my final exam, I was down in the office starting. So I didn't take much time off. But when it comes to what I studied at McGill, so it's the BCom program there. Studied finance, strategic management, and data analysis, or I think they call it data analytics. It's essentially just data science. And I apply mainly the finance knowledge to the work I do at Gastronomous, to be honest. There's not really any course that teaches you anything about product management, so you kind of just learn that on the fly, figure out best principles, and how to work with the engineering team. And then when it comes to strategic management, there's a couple of frameworks that I still do use, especially when it comes to decision making. But I'd say overall, it's just learning how the biggest help has been just learning how to interact with people, learning how to have fruitful conversations, learning how to present. So a lot of very, very important soft skills are what I apply from my time at university. And I think that's what's really helped me transition best and hit the ground running at Gastronomous.
Wonderful. Yeah, and that's great to hear. I know Dirk and I were often chatting about the people skills, but then also I think something we discovered over the course of many of our episodes is how much you really do learn on the job, and just the relationships you form, the people you work with, and hearing about your history going all the way back to high school. It's great to hear that continued, and now with this company. This is an amazing podcast, Dirk, that we got lined up here. So we got a bit of background, but Dirk, I know that you visited the operation, and of course you have a bit more of that background. So having heard a bit about Kristian and Karl, Dirk, I'll ask you to take over here with the questions, and we can dive into some of the details and get into some of the practical advice and realities of the business. So Dirk, please take us away.
Yeah, thanks, Kristian, and again, it's a huge pleasure to have Kristian and Karl on the show. And I already, for me, I'm starting to take notes here already, because to me the leadership in the age of robotics and AI is something that really interests me. How much do we still need people skills in a world of robotics and AI? And I think that the two of you, Kristian and Karl, is just fantastic, and so let's dive in here. So Kristian, take it back to you. As you mentioned, you are disrupting, transforming a very established industry that you told us hasn't changed much, and you compared it, I think, very well, as our Kristian mentioned, to the auto industry. Kristian, you talked about the comparison between how Tesla is disrupting. And so when a new player like this comes on the scene, you have the opportunity to disrupt. There is a lot of interest. You want to grow, but then there are big players looking at you. And I know you, when we talked during my visit, staying independent is important to you. So tell me about that. How do you navigate all of that intention, but also the desire to stay independent, at least, I guess, for now?
Well, that's a very good question, Dirk. I think you always have to. I think you always have to keep the end goal in mind, and you have to often kind of reevaluate and see where you are and see what's the best path forward. I think something very, very important, especially kind of if you're talking about, navigating, let's say, the large incumbents and how things are traditionally done in the space, you got to look at what your strengths are as a company, and utilize those to your advantage. So, in our space, and kind of the situation we're in, areas where, let's say, our strengths are not, is global distribution. Fast food is all across the globe. When you're dealing with very, very large multinational chains, they're anywhere from Canada all the way to Australia. So I think that's an area where having that global distribution set up, global support set up, that's an example of, okay, where you as a startup, your strengths are not in now. So you got to be creative and see, okay, how do you figure it out? How do you work with the customer so that you are able to eventually support all of their stores? So as an analogy there. Now, on the flip side of things, where are your advantages? Well, it's your resourcefulness, it's your agility, it's your creativeness, and it's your ability to envision ideas and come up with concepts and eventually an end product that no other company in the space would be able to. So I think it's being mindful of reality, acknowledging, again, where are your strengths, where do you need support, and navigating accordingly.
Yeah, excellent. Karl, you want to jump in here quickly and add your perspective?
Yeah, I can. I mean, when it comes to building out the business, I mean, startups are staged by nature because you have to de-risk different aspects of the business, essentially one at a time, right? And to add to Kristian's point, we're at a stage now where we've really done a really good job de-risking the product, especially the tech. We've de-risked the market in generating a lot of demand and understanding that we've built something that really solves their the market and the customer's needs, their deep needs. And now we're on to de-risking distribution. So how can we scale up production and deploy hundreds to thousands of machines a quarter, a year, and service and maintain them in geographic markets that aren't necessarily easy to reach? So we're talking all the way from tier 1 to tier 5 markets, right? Tier 1, 2, and 3 markets are relatively easier because they're bigger metropolises. They have the infrastructure and the network support to help us distribute. But in those tier 4 and 5 markets, that's an even bigger challenge. I mean, how do you get a person out there if there already isn't one to service a machine, right? Those are the kinds of issues that we have to now de-risk and solve for. And my favorite part about building a company like this is that you're always de-risking the next stage of the company. You're always learning and going through the life cycle of a company, and having to figure out and solve new problems.
Yeah, thanks, Karl. And to just comment here quickly. So, Kristian, I'm glad you started off with a brutal reality, right? And sometimes we like to imagine the world the way we would want to be for our company to succeed, but the world is what it is. And so it was good to hear from you. And I want to emphasize that for our listeners. You start with the reality as it is. What am I good at? What am I not good at? And I need to have a very clear view of that. And then Karl is saying, so then you can start building on that and taking it stage by stage. Now, you guys moved us here into the world of global distribution. I'm going to pull you back to the world of engineering here for a second, because you are a tech company. Like, let's not forget, it's robotics and AI to transform an established industry. And so tell us a little about Kristian, the culture of innovation, creative problem solving. Take us a little bit to the engineering genius behind Gastronomous here.
Most definitely, and I think that's rightfully, as you pointed out, Dirk, that's at the core of any startup, whether it's hardware or software or whatever. It's your foresight and your technological ingenuity. So I think the biggest thing, the biggest thing when it comes to any new product is having the right team and crafting the right team. I'd say that's step one, surrounding yourself with the best team you can. But then it also comes down to what type of culture you have as a business. You gotta, and it's not a quick thing. It's not something that can change overnight or in 1 week or in 6 months. It's a long-term thing. But developing the right culture where your people, are invested in the business, where your people only want to work with other peers who hold themselves to the same degree. So, I can go on and on about how things are done and all of the different challenges and decisions that need to get made on a daily basis. But I think in large, it's having the right team and fostering the right environment where those bright minds can excel and at the end of the day create products which have a meaningful impact.
Yeah, and one of those people you talked about, one of those brilliant people you attracted early on in your sneaker business was Karl. So let's hear.
Karl, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Let's hear from you. What do you think about from your perspective as a business guy here, the importance of engineering, innovation, creative problem solving? What's your view here?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to start off with one opinion that I have, and that everything is essentially technology. I don't like the fact that there is a technology industry, because if you think about every new piece of innovation, every device or product that you use was a piece of new innovation at some point in time, and that's what defines technology. So I really don't like the fact that people say, "Oh, you're in the technology industry." No, everything has been technology when it was first developed and created, and there's just a life cycle to technology, and some things become old as they go if you don't innovate. So I think technology is at the core of every single product that's being developed and every single thing that we use in our daily lives today, rather than what you just think is old school tech, like a computer, an iPhone, whatever it may be. When it comes to products and building businesses, I mean, look at the S&P 500 and the Magnificent Seven now, right? I mean, tech is the future of the world. That's how businesses stay at the forefront of delivering the best products and services possible. And at the heart of that is engineering, right? You have to have the best engineering department in the world to be able to build the best products in the world. And if you're not at that cutting edge, then you fall behind the competition because somebody else will do it instead. That's why it's so central to every product development process. And of course, innovation cannot just be on the engineering front. There's business model innovation, like financial innovation. But at the end of the day, engineering just means the building of new things, right? So I think that, especially in our industry, what defines building great products is how you think about and design products or solutions that perform tasks that traditional equipment may have, but in much more efficient or effective ways. Like, for example, when you look at the products we build, the incumbents build products that do the same thing as ours. But with the implementation of newer technologies and design innovation, you're able to deliver much more value to your end customer by improving those products, and it's very central to business in general, right? So I think that's a good encapsulation of my opinion on just engineering, product development, innovation, and such.
Yeah, Karl, that's great, and I have a follow-up question in a second here, but want to re-emphasize the point that Kristian made in his comments, and allow me to editorialize here just a little bit. So I just did a strategy seminar yesterday, and we talk about the world being VUCA, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Karl, I'm sure you have heard that in business school, and so the main strategy you can have in a VUCA world, in a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world, is you have to have people who can perform brilliantly no matter what, because you just don't know what's coming around the corner. And so that's why it was just fascinating to me that the chief engineering genius here, Kristian, starts talking about people, and then the business guy talks about engineering. And so this is just where I can see that partnership between the two of you working so well, because it's really those two things: brilliant engineering and great people. And again, another buzzword that I'm going to throw in here, it's a multiplicative performance system, right? So if you get the people and the engineering right, it's not a plus equation, it's a multiplicative equation. But enough here. I could go on here, but I will stop myself. Kristian is already giving me a sign here to get back to get back to our guests. So let's talk about engineering challenges here for a quick second.
All right, and with the mention of my name, I will take the opportunity to pause the interview here. We hope that you've enjoyed part 1 of a 2-part interview series with Kristian and Karl. Already so much going on, lots of great information. And of course, in part 2, we continue. As Dirk mentioned, we'll be getting into the engineering and the technology quite heavily in the next episode. And of course, and I think this is what a lot of you are interested in, we're going to dive into Kristian and Karl's advice for aspiring leaders or people who are looking to get into the startup space. So please join us again for part 2. That's already uploaded if you're listening to this in your podcast catcher. So click on our channel and you can find that there. As always, we want to thank you for listening to the Jamoir Leadership Podcast. And if you want to get in touch with us with any comments, questions, or anything at all, you can reach us at podcast@jamoir.com. Podcast@jamoir.com. Look forward to having you in part 2. Take care.